My name is Mr. Henderson, and I am 62 years old, living here in the bustling heart of Istanbul, a city that breathes with history and the constant symphony of life. Every morning I wake before the first call to prayer, the sky outside my window still a deep indigo. I make myself a strong glass of Turkish tea, watching the city slowly come alive from my small balcony overlooking a narrow, winding street. The smell of fresh simit, a circular bread often covered with sesame seeds, and the faint scent of coffee would drift up from the bakeries below, a comforting routine I have followed for decades. I own this old apartment building inherited from my father, and it is more than just bricks and mortar to me. It is a repository of memories, a lifetime of echoes. Most days I spend my time patching small cracks, fixing leaky faucets, or tending to the potted geraniums that line the communal staircase. It is honest work, though my 62-year-old knees do not always agree with the climb up to the roof for inspections or the bending over to tighten a stubborn pipe. My life is quiet now, very quiet, since my dear wife, Aish, passed away 5 years ago. Sometimes the silence in my apartment is so loud it feels like another tenant. I miss her laughter, her knowing glances, the way she always knew how to make a simple meal feel like a feast. My children have grown and moved to other cities, chasing their own dreams, and while I am proud of them, a part of me feels a profound loneliness, a quiet ache that settles deep in my bones. I am not a wealthy man, not truly. The rent from my apartments covers the rising costs of maintenance, the property taxes which seem to climb higher each year, and just enough for my modest needs. I dream of simply keeping this building intact, a legacy for my family and a home for my tenants. But lately, a heavy shadow has begun to fall over that dream. Just last month, the ancient boiler for the entire building finally sputtered its last breath, giving up the ghost with a final, wheezing cough. The estimate for a new one, a modern, efficient unit, was exorbitant, far more than I had in my emergency fund. I lay awake for many nights, staring at the ceiling, the fear of cold tenants and colder showers gnawing at me. My internal nemesis was not just the mounting bills, but a suffocating doubt. Could I still manage? Was I too old for this fight? Was I slowly losing my grip, just like the old plaster on the walls? The fear of failure, of not being able to protect what my father had built, felt like a physical weight on my chest. I tried everything I could think of to improve my situation. I spent days calling different suppliers, comparing prices, trying to negotiate a better deal for the new boiler. I even attempted some of the simpler repairs on my own, tightening bolts and replacing small parts, hoping to squeeze a few more weeks out of the old system, but it was useless. The boiler was truly dead. Then, one of my ground floor tenants, a young student, decided to move back home, leaving a vacant apartment. That meant a lost month of rent, another significant blow to my already stretched finances. I put up signs, cleaned the apartment meticulously myself, even painted the walls, but prospective tenants were scarce, and the ones who inquired found the rent too high for the modest space. My savings were dwindling faster than the water in a leaking cistern. I started skipping my small afternoon treat of a strong coffee and a piece of baklava, choosing instead a simpler cup of tea. My old coat, which had served me faithfully for years, developed a tear near the pocket, but I decided it could wait. Every lira counted. The weight on my shoulders grew heavier with each passing day. I felt like I was constantly climbing a hill, only to find another, steeper one waiting for me at the top. One evening, after a particularly frustrating day of chasing down a plumber who never showed up, I was walking back to my apartment. The streetlights cast long, dancing shadows. As I passed the ground floor apartment, the one where the young artist, Elara, lived, I saw her. She was sitting on the stoop, surrounded by a small congregation of Istanbul's famous street cats. There were 5 of them at least, sleek, wary creatures, their eyes glinting in the dim light. She was carefully spooning a mixture of rice and fish from a small container into several bowls she had placed on the ground. Her movements were gentle, her face soft with affection, even as her own clothing looked worn and faded. I had known Elara for a year now. She was quiet, always paid her rent on time, but I had noticed she was often dressed simply, sometimes even seemed to go without, and her studio apartment always seemed a little too sparse. A terrible thought crept into my mind then. With the boiler costing so much and the vacant apartment, I might have to raise the rent on my existing tenants. The very idea made my stomach clench. How could I ask more from Elara, who was clearly already struggling to make ends meet? But what else could I do? I felt cornered, trapped. A few days later, my old friend, Dr. Kemal, called. He had seen my advertisements for the vacant apartment and knew of my financial strain. He gently informed me that my blood pressure had been a little high during my last checkup, and he urged me to take it easy. He advised against any heavy lifting or strenuous work until I could afford some proper rest. It felt like another brick added to the crushing weight. My body was betraying me too. I reached my lowest point just after receiving a final, non-negotiable quote for the new boiler. It was almost double what I had initially hoped for. I sat in my quiet apartment, the numbers swirling in my head, feeling a cold despair creep into every corner of my soul. I considered selling my father's prized collection of old Ottoman coins, a collection I had promised myself I would never touch, a connection to my family's past. The thought made my eyes well up. Giving up these coins felt like giving up a part of myself, a final surrender. I knew I couldn't bear to ask Elara for more money. I knew I simply could not. But then what? I felt like giving up on the building, on myself, on everything. The loneliness felt overwhelming, like a vast, empty sea I was drowning in. That evening, I decided I needed to clear my head to walk off the suffocating weight that had settled inside me. The city lights sparkled like scattered jewels, but I barely noticed them. As I turned onto my street, I saw Elara again, once more surrounded by her furry friends. This time, she wasn't just feeding them, she was talking to them softly as if they were old confidants. One sleek black cat was gently rubbing against her leg, purring loudly enough for me to hear from across the street. Her eyes, usually reserved, held a deep, profound love as she stroked the cat's head. And then I saw it. She opened a small plastic bag and took out half of a cimet, slightly stale, and carefully broke it into pieces for the cats. There was no other food in the bag. It hit me then with the force of a tidal wave. She was giving her own food to the stray cats, sharing what little she had not just once but every single day. She wasn't just feeding them leftovers, she was sacrificing for them. In that moment, something shifted within me. My own burdens, while still heavy, suddenly felt different. Here was a young woman, struggling herself, yet her heart was so full of compassion that she was willing to go without to ensure these forgotten creatures had something to eat. My internal nemesis, the doubt and fear, began to dissipate, replaced by a quiet, burning resolve. If she could be so giving with so little, what was I truly losing by helping her? What was money compared to the profound kindness I was witnessing? The decision was made, swift and clear. I walked towards her, my old shoes scuffing on the cobblestones. She looked up, startled, gathering her bowls. "Elara," I said, my voice perhaps a little rougher than I intended. She nodded politely. "Please don't worry about next month's rent," I continued, feeling a strange lightness in my chest as the words left my lips. "And from now on, your rent will be 50% less than what it is now, for as long as you need it." Her eyes, wide and surprised, searched mine. "Mr. Henderson, why?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. I simply smiled, a genuine smile that felt foreign on my face after so long. "Because," I said, looking from her to the grateful cats swirling around her feet, "you remind me that some things are more important than numbers. You remind me what it means to truly care." The next morning, the sun seemed to shine a little brighter. I still had the boiler problem and the empty apartment, but the suffocating weight was gone. The internal nemesis of doubt had been replaced by a quiet sense of purpose. I had done something good, truly good, and that feeling, it turned out, was more valuable than any amount of money. Elara was understandably overwhelmed. The following week, she came to my door with a small, beautifully drawn sketch of the building, a heartfelt thank you. And then something beautiful began to ripple. Elara, with her newfound financial breathing room, started leaving little notes under my door. "Mr. Henderson, I saw you were looking for a plumber. My cousin is one, very reliable. He said he would give you a good price." Or, "I made some extra lentil soup today, please take some." She became not just a tenant, but a quiet, constant presence of kindness in my life. The plumber, her cousin, did indeed give me a fair price for the boiler, and he installed it quickly and efficiently. The old building now had warmth again, and I felt a deep sense of relief. A few weeks later, a young couple, new to Istanbul, saw Elara feeding the cats on the stoop. They were charmed by her compassion and asked her about the building. She, in turn, told them about the kind landlord, Mr. Henderson, who had helped her. They were looking for an apartment, and when I showed them the vacant unit, they loved it instantly, signing the lease that very day. They even had a small, shy cat themselves, an indoor one, which they thought would fit right in with the neighborhood's feline community. My life didn't magically become free of all challenges. I still had bills and the occasional creaking pipe, but my new normal was filled with a different kind of richness. I was no longer just a lonely landlord. I was part of a small, interconnected community where kindness flowed freely. I started making a little extra rice and fish myself sometimes, leaving it out for the cats on the street, smiling at the thought of Elara and her quiet devotion. I even started volunteering at a local animal shelter once a week, finding immense joy in tending to the forgotten creatures. I realized that my own act of unexpected kindness had not diminished me, but rather had opened me up to more kindness, more connection. And here is the small, poignant twist that truly proved things get better. One day, As I was sweeping the staircase, I found an old, tarnished silver locket that had somehow slipped from my pocket. It was a locket Aish had given me many years ago, containing a tiny, faded photograph of us on our wedding day. I had thought it lost forever. Finding it then, just as I felt so connected to life again, felt like her quiet affirmation. Sometimes, when you give with an open heart, you don't just help someone else. You help yourself find the pieces of your own life that you thought were gone forever, and you find them shining brighter than before.